So you're still overweight as a vegan. Let me break down why in this video and give you some troubleshooting tips to start addressing that. You'll have to forgive me, guys, as you won't see, but it's getting a little bit dark outside, so I don't know how the lighting's gonna do, but I was in the mood to film. I'm in the mood for fruit. Look at this little selection here. So we've got our kiwi. Somebody in the last video was like, Ryan, don't you eat I can't believe you don't eat your kiwi with the skin on. And I was like, I actually do. About 80 to 90% of the time I do, but I don't think you guys understand. The internet is nuts. Social media is nuts. And I just know from experience that someone is straight in the comments like, I bet you love putting hairy round things in your mouth, don't you? Like, this is what the internet is like, guys, honestly. So we're doing it with skin on today, but I've sliced it up like this. We've got some mango here. This is, I don't know if you'll make this out, but it looks really like pear, doesn't it, actually, probably from a distance. But this is some apple here, some straws, a little tangy. And yeah, let's do this anyway. You're still overweight as a vegan. Like, this one is going to annoy people, and I'm just going to cut to the chase with it. He says, after being like a minute or two into this, you're still overweight, as a vegan because you are assuming that being vegan is enough, that it is a magic pill, and that simply by following a diet methodology as a whole, I know some people are going to go, veganism's not a diet, but a vegan diet is a kind of diet, quite literally. That is what dietary means. It describes a category of foods that you eat, but you are assuming anyway. Cut to the chase, right? Don't get distracted. You're assuming that simply following a diet and therefore having restrictions, having things that you can't eat is automatically enough. And people do this FYI across, did I just say FYI? Corporate speak, office cringe speak, but people do this across the nutrition spectrum. Like the keto people are like, I thought being keto would be enough to lose weight. It depends how many calories you eat, guys. That is the common denominator, and people don't want to face this because there are so many teachers, again, across the diet spectrum that say, no, the silver bullet is keto, the silver bullet is just intermittent fasting, the silver bullet is just being vegan or just following a plant-based diet. Like, it is horse, guys. It's horse, and of course, all diets are not equal, obviously, but a calorie deficit is the common denominator. That's what works across the diet spectrum. Everything else is horse. When I say horse, I mean horse crap, right? This is BS. This is a load of nonsense. So you're still overweight as a vegan right now, likely because you are just assuming, in a rather, in many cases, sorry to say, very entitled sense, that being vegan is enough. And that weight loss should just happen by virtue of you having dietary restriction, by virtue of you not eating meat, dairy, fish, eggs, anything from animal products, cheese, etc., etc. That should be enough. Now, don't get me wrong, like in some cases it is, and the studies on this are really, really clear that the average vegan does tend to have lower BMI than the average omnivore or the average, sort of more meat-heavy, meat-focused dieter. Let's call them a carnivore, as I often like to. That might be exclusively meat, so that's probably unfair. That's unfair categorization. But anyway, you catch my drift. So for many people, simply being vegan, it may well be enough for some weight loss, or let's say, anecdotally, this is what I observe, enough for some initial weight loss. But at some point, facing the fact and the reality that it's going to come down to you being in a calorie deficit, and actually in many cases, the composition of the food you eat, excuse the wobbly camera there, don't touch the table, God forbid, that's how precarious. If you guys could see my setup, I've got this camera stacked on like 4 towels here, you wouldn't believe it. So yeah, it looks like he's got a lovely kitchen there, he's got all his food, the audio is not bad now, like he's upgraded even without Georgie boy. Guys, it's not like that at all. It's completely like makeshift DIY behind the camera. I lost my train of thought entirely, but paying homage to the importance of calories. Oh yeah, and that mattering less than the composition of your diet. And people freak, like the Puritans freak out about this. No, it's about the composition of your diet. No, it's about macronutrients. No, it's about eating quality whole foods. That's what dictates weight loss. No, it's not. No, it's not. It might help. It might make it more easy to be in a calorie deficit, but it's still going to come down to calories. And the composition of your diet, although things like fiber with the fiber trapping effect that I spoke to the esteemed Dr. Neil Barnard about in our interview last year, and I've spoken at length about the thermic effect of foods, of eating certainly many whole foods, and what impact this can have to metabolic rate. So there are things, vague term, within the body, mechanisms, let's call them, and foods that combine nicely with those mechanisms that do make it slightly more complicated than a calorie in versus a calorie out. Yes, I agree, but that is still the fundamental law, and that still trumps the role of composition of diet. So calories number one, composition of diet. I'm not even going to say number two because there's other things that play a role here as well. But it's lesser, it's secondary absolutely compared to the calorie issue. You can literally eat McDonald's every day, and if you're in a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. Not Ryan Adams' advice. Yes, I talk about myself in the third person sometimes when I get a little bit carried away with me little rants here, me little monologues. But not my advice to eat McDonald's every day and, justify it by being like, well, I'm losing weight, I'm still in a calorie deficit. And of course, that's not going to be sustainable. Not only is it not healthy, it's probably not going to be sustainable anyway. You're going to be eating measly amounts of food because of the caloric density. Whereas when you eat stuff like this, fresh fruits, vegetables, whole grains, plenty of beans, bit of tofu, some of those healthy fat sources like nuts and seeds, they're higher in calories. But generally, you get to eat quite a large volume because you've got all this bulk, all of this fiber. It makes it so much easier to be in a calorie deficit. And that's why I say, even though a plant-based diet is not a magic pill, and I should stress a whole foods-focused plant-based diet, whole foods-focused vegan diet is not a magic pill. For me, it has been the most easy and sustainable way I've discovered to lose weight. Out of all the stuff I tried for years and years, between about 18 and 21, 22, when I was getting into all of this stuff, there's a reason why I've done a plant-based diet for 10 years now, because I started doing it and I was like, oh my God, game has changed. Like, this is incredible. This breaks so many of the rules I thought I used to need for weight loss. That feeling of deprivation and restriction and fatigue that for me was so common on other approaches, and I must take accountability, responsibility here and say I was doing some of those other things wrong. If I was an omnivore now, I would make better choices and know how to make it more sustainable to be in a calorie deficit. But this for me was the proverbial cheat code. Cheat code is not the same as magic pill. It's not the same as silver bullet. It doesn't fix everything. So just being vegan, guys, it's not enough. Even in some cases, being a healthy vegan is not always enough for weight loss either. When I say enough, I mean enough for weight loss, point of this video. It's not a guarantee. You have to respect and pay homage to this fundamental law of calories. And it's only when you do this that you'll guarantee that scale drops every day, every week rather, not every day, consistently. And that's what's crucial, and that's exactly the approach that's changed my life versus being, 15, 16 kilos heavier like I was 10 years ago. This made all the difference for me. And I'm actually, believe it or not actually an advocate for counting your calories every single day. I don't use my MyFitnessPal. I don't use Chronometer. Actually, in many cases, these are the antithesis of my approach. But I still respect calories. I still have good calorie awareness. I did 18 months of calorie counting when I was about 19 to 20. So I know what a bowl of rice, what 200 calories of rice looks like. I know that this apple here, actually this is half an apple, this apple here will be about 45 to 55 max calories. I know this stuff because I've been doing this for years and years and years. I've probably got 100 calories. I'm missing the middle segment, but I've probably got 100 calories, maybe 110 calories of mango here. I know this stuff. And if we were to weigh it and measure it, I wouldn't be far out. I wouldn't be on the spot every time, but I wouldn't be far out because I've been doing this for years. So no, I don't track my calories, but I still understand principles like caloric density. I understand roughly how many calories I eat per day. And that is a North Star for me every single day. I'm not weighing and measuring like a total nutrition nerd. I'm not sitting there on Chronometer in MyFitnessPal. That's not my style. I know if I'm in a calorie deficit because I'm losing weight. I know if I'm in a calorie deficit or not because of how I feel. I know if I'm in a calorie surplus because of how my physique changes, what my weight does, how I feel. I know the signs because I've been doing this for so long. You might not be at that point, but that's certainly where you can get to. And I don't think it is necessitous to track your calories every single day to actually get to that point. You might find it useful in times, or if you hit a plateau, it might be illuminating for you to, drop your stuff in Chronometer on MyFitnessPal and realize, oh my goodness, I'm eating 300 more calories than I actually thought I was, ballpark. That can be incredibly illuminating, and then you can know where. Then that's obviously you've got some information, some data to look at there to start auditing and saying, all right, where am I spending lots of? Oh my goodness, I eat 200 calories worth of medjool dates every day because I eat 4 or 5 medjool dates a day, 3 or 4 medjool dates a day. They are that calorific, would you believe? All right, maybe I'll halve that. All right, maybe I'll do some other fresh fruit because it's lower. I'll do some strawberries instead of medjool dates because they're like 89, 90% water content, so they're much lower in caloric density than dried fruit like medjool dates, for example. And that's when you can start manipulating your diet. But again, it all stems, I don't want to open that can of worms and go down how. This is not a how-to video necessarily, but rather I just want to call attention because there are many people in this space that like to believe, or have been told, with poor advice, admittedly. I think it's a mix of the two, in fairness. I think people are to blame for hearing what they want to hear or not hearing what they need to hear, and I think there are some teachers, sadly, in all communities. I don't think this is a vegan nutrition problem or a plant-based nutrition space problem. This, of course, goes across the diet spectrum. I do think there are a few teachers, more than a few teachers in this space, that don't rally behind the importance of calories enough, and maybe don't mention it enough in their content, and do verbatim say, you don't need to worry about calories to lose weight. I've actually even heard verbatim, calories don't matter, which is absolutely ludicrous. And this is from folks with sort of 20, 30, 40,000 plus followers on social media. Like, this is nutty, because those folks do have influence. So anyway, that's the goal of today's video, to alert you to the importance of calories and pay homage to them, and that's why you're overweight as a vegan. And it's also worth saying as well, a sort of another point I'll throw in here is that it's a very obvious one. I don't think it's particularly profound. I think other people cover this, I think I cover this, but let me just say it sort of very quickly. Vegan junk food is still junk food, guys. You know, lots of each product needs to be assessed individually. Some are better, quote unquote, than others from a weight loss perspective. Some might be more effective, more appropriate than others. Some might be healthier than others. They might be lower in saturated fat than others. They might be less calorically dense than others. But, you know, lots of these like vegan mock meats and the substitute, not all the substitute stuff. I've got to be very careful with my language here, but much of the substitute products, the vegan alternatives, like food manufacturers are just doing the same stuff. It's just junk food. Again, they're doing the same stuff they do with the meat and dairy equivalent to those things, or similar. And yeah, those are not going to be helpful if you want to be in a calorie deficit every day and consistently lose weight. Anyway, they're not going to be helpful. That's not to say you need to be a perfect clean eater around the clock. I certainly am not. I want to be realistic with my clients. I want them to be realistic. I think a nice target is sort of 90% whole foods, 90% this sort of stuff here. And if every week you have a meal or two out, or you have a little bit of dessert, and once a month you have a couple of cocktails with your friends, a glass of wine, that's how I live my life, to be honest with you guys. I'm not perfect Puritan. I don't want to cast myself as that and then have somebody catch me out and say, hold on, I saw you, Ryan, you're having a G&T with a lovely, on a lovely date with a nice young lady. I don't want to be caught out like that. But no, that's my, I was about to say that's my truth, which is my second cringy, cheesy statement of the day, but that's my life, and I'm really transparent about that. I'm not one of these Puritans that's like, everything needs to be whole foods, whole plant foods all the time. Simultaneously, you know, I wouldn't call myself a flexible dieter where I'm allowing a lot of processed stuff into my diet and encouraging you guys to go try the latest vegan burger and whatnot, because I know from a health and certainly a weight management perspective, that's going to be less than ideal to do too often. You can fit these things into your diet once in a while. I've kind of got this policy that I teach my clients of bending the rules without breaking them, but you don't want to be doing too much of that. Really, the value here is on these fiber, nutrient-packed whole plant foods that tend, there are some exceptions, to have a relatively low caloric density and therefore be most advantageous for staying in a calorie deficit. So that's why you're overweight as a vegan. I think, likely, I'm being presumptuous, you are assuming that being vegan was or is enough to guarantee sustained weight loss. Sadly not.